Hello and welcome to underneath my workshop. I hope you're more comfortable than I am. We finished last episode with covering up the trailer, which now can only be seen from down here. This episode it's time to get into the real meat of construction. We're going to build some walls. It's kind of cold down here, so I'll cut the intro short and wish you a pleasant time watching the video. As always, leave any feedback and questions below and I'll see you at the end. Our first task was to build the wooden grid that will make up the floor of the house. But right off the bat we had some trouble with the material. Alright, we asked the construction store to give us 2.50 m pieces. And this is what we got. Amazing. None of them are the same. Yeah. More work for us. Cool. After sorting that out, we started to prepare the crosswise beams which are supposed to interlock with lengthwise beams later on. That's why we're cutting these notches here. We pretty much improvised these methods as we built it, so you'll see a certain evolution in our technique as we improved it over the course of the construction. For example, we ditched the jigsaw later on. The notches were first sawed with a circular saw and then chiseled out. While preparing the lengthwise beams, we figured out that cutting more often with the saw leaves us with a far more accurate and clean notches after chiseling out the wood compared to blowing out just one big chunk. For both aesthetic and technical reasons, I decided the house should have missing corners in the front, which you can see is prepared here. This will be more evident later on. We couldn't get lumber long enough for the length of the trailer, so we had to join some smaller pieces together for the lengthwise beams. There were also some pop rivets still missing in the front, because I had to order more. Once all the pieces were prepared, we were ready to join the grid together. Some things were a bit too tight here and there, but overall the beams fit together pretty well. We both screwed and glued all the joints. I'm not sure if the gluing is really necessary, but we went for it anyway. Here you can once again see those 45-degree corners I talked about earlier. After the grid was completed, it was bolted to the trailer. Where the grid hung freely over the wheels, we felt the need to add some additional support. Same thing applies to the front, which was also hanging freely. Here some thin steel bands were added flush to the grid, which improved the rigidity greatly. Now it was time for me to put our rough concept of the workshop into some usable instructions. To be specific, I drew all the wall elements at a 1:10 scale and wrote down all the measurements that would be relevant to us while building. Some details were additionally drawn at a 1:5 scale if it seemed necessary. Having these detailed plans really was a huge help because we could essentially follow them like an IKEA manual, cutting all the lumber to the specifications I noted in the plans and then joining them together without any issues. Another advantage of meticulous planning is that you can very accurately calculate the amount of materials you need. With that knowledge, we went shopping for lumber once again. Picking up 5-meter beams with a 2-meter trailer was a challenge on its own, by the way. Anyway, now I could start marking out and cutting beams to length for the walls. Then we started assembling the walls one by one. As with the last episode, we took a break here to cut some more glass because I salvaged another old window. It went pretty meh. One window turned out fine, but we broke the other one, so we had to go to a professional to get the second one made, because we ran out of glass to break. Back at the trailer we had some weather escapades. Actually, this was the first snow we've seen that winter, and it was already April. Well, conditions are less than ideal today, but we are getting stuff done. Just a bit slower than usual. The weather is supposed to get better soon though, so that's nice. Nice.
I am Dumbo.
Stranger on the roof, ever feel much love? Does it make you sad?
So yeah, we kept prefabricating all of the wall elements according to plan, using mostly the same joining technique we used for the floor grid. Then came the time to assemble everything and pray that it all fits together just as planned. We started out with installing the large windows. Actually, these windows were too tall to be used upright, so we decided to place them sideways. That meant that we had to cut off some flaps on the frame which were in the way. Using the circular saw with a regular wood cutting blade to cut the aluminum window was a bit scary at first, but it actually worked great. A thin strip of plywood was used to fill a gap, and then the window was ready to be lifted into place. It was screwed down to the floor and connected to the first wall elements. Until then it had to be held in place by some willing volunteers. Sealing tape between the window and the walls assures that no moisture or drafts can pass through the gaps. Continuing with the second window, we went around and installed the wall elements by screwing them to the floor and connecting them with each other. After all of that preparation, we were really excited about how fast we were suddenly making visible progress. One wall element received some recesses for the windows we cut earlier. This was the first time I used a router, which quickly became one of my favorite new toys. We also started cutting the first of the aluminium tread plates to size, so we could walk properly inside the tiny shop. After testing them out, I decided we should add some more wood to the floor grid to prevent swinging of the floor later on. This task required a crap ton of angles, so I decided to make some myself from a piece of angle iron. Using these, we continued adding the additional support to the floor. And this is also part of the building experience. What better way to get some strength on a cold day than making some delicious fire-baked potatoes? Just throw them into the glowing embers for 30 to 40 minutes, add some salt, and you've got an amazing snack. We've wrapped them in some foil here, but I've made them before by throwing the potatoes right into the embers, and that worked fine as well. Anyway, after that we finished putting up the walls, and for the first time got a pretty good feel for the look of the tiny shop. Pretty sweet, am I right? Lastly, we installed a ring anchor out of some larger lumber that really helps joining all the wall elements into one rigid structure. Well, thanks for watching episode 2 of the project. The walls are done, at least the base structure. Next up is the roof. To give you some perspective, the last episode covered 86 days from the 23rd of December to the 17th of March, whereas this one covers only 31 days from March 17th to April 16th. But still there's a lot more progress to be seen in this one, which is neat. I don't want to drag this out needlessly, so thank you again for watching, and I'll see you in the next one in a month or so, probably. And I'll leave you with a little teaser for the next episode. Bye!